I also want to encourage you to really understand yourself, and there's a lot of tools to do that, and also understand the context in which you're leading. There's lots of self-assessment tools out there. None of them are perfect, but it's helpful, I think, for a team to take the same assessment and sort of compare and contrast. And it's a really good way to talk about how you're different from one another in your leadership styles. So anyway, I encourage you to do that as a leadership team. One helpful one that has a free assessment is the Keirsey Temperament Sorter. It's similar to Myers-Briggs in that there's an introvert, extrovert, thinking, feeling, kind of sensing, intuitive kind of matrix that creates the different temperaments, although Keirsey's more about how you function and not more about your defaults. Myers-Briggs is a little bit more about defaults. But anyway, I'll have a link to this in the optional materials if you want to go and take the self-assessment and learn a little bit about yourself and the team. One thing that I think is kind of fascinating about this is I did this with my team, and normally I'm a teacher in the Keirsey Temperament Sorter. But I found that in my team, I was actually, because my team were mostly feelers, and I'm sort of on the boundary between thinking and feeling. I actually would show up during conflict as a field marshal rather than a teacher. So that's the difference between feeling and thinking in the Keirsey Temperament Sorter. So it's like I'm happy to teach people, but if things aren't going well and my thinking piece comes over, then I'll show up, a little bit more like let's get this done, let's keep going, rather than let's process our feelings. Where when I was in a room full of engineers, I was very much more about processing feelings. So I'm just sharing that, just say that in different groups you might show up differently. You might show up differently in your family of origin. You might show up differently at work. You might show up differently in the choir than you do in the boardroom. So just give yourself permission to be complicated, because we humans are complicated. And, know your baggage, know your family stuff as much as you can. I shared some of those tools for, family birth order. There's a lot of genogram stuff to really understand about your own family history and functioning and how that affects you now. So, again, this is, if you notice that you come up against stuff, that might be an invitation to do a little bit of family work. And also know what your triggers are. Maybe it's money, maybe it's authority, but know what your own triggers are so that you're ready for them when they get triggered. And also, when you encounter those triggers, what defense do you have? Do you focus on your breath? Do you count to 10? Do you go take a break? Your Patronus from Harry Potter, what do you use? Or if you don't have anything, what can you develop so that when you are triggered, what can you do to say, oh, wow, I'm being triggered. I need to, before I really go off the deep end. Because if you notice you're being triggered, you can avoid going into the amygdala hijack. You can't always do it, but, if you really can create that space between whatever the stimulus is coming in and whatever your reaction is, that your Patronus is really that, creating that space. What can you do to create that space so you can be responsive and not reactive? There's also tools for your congregational assessments that you can do about not, only how well you're doing ministry, but also, how well are you functioning as a group. So, healthy leadership makes healthy congregations. And, the more people you can have take this course or a similar course to it, the more you can inject health into your congregation and really help hold each other to being your best selves when you show up at church. Also notice when you're being handed the hot potato of anxiety, or maybe you have the hot potato of anxiety and are trying to hand it off to someone else by triangulating them in to whatever conflict you might be involved in. So that's just something else to watch. And, also knowing what your fried potatoes are. What are some things that you feel like there's one way to do it, and really maybe there's more than one way to do it, such as the fried potatoes that Peter Stanke talked about. And as a reminder, is that the fried potatoes is to like the way your mother fried potatoes, but not be freaked out if somebody else fries their potatoes differently. So this kind of shows up, we sometimes in our congregations play this game of pick your outrage, why is everyone so upset about A when they should be talking about B? So this often shows up in our social justice circles where everyone has their pet cause. It also might show up in, faith development areas, like somebody might be really wanting to learn about world religions and other people might have another feeling about something. So anyway, this is just something to watch out for. And in the questions, I'm going to ask you to think about, what are those outrages that show up, the fried potato outrages that show up in your congregation. It might be theology. Some of our congregations have members who don't want to hear the word God or spirit or worship or sanctuary. Some of those words are fried potatoes. I don't want you saying those words around me. There's a lot of cultural things. Hopefully in the welcome table sessions you've been engaging with, do we have a dominant culture? How can we be more welcoming of other cultures? And there's also maybe even a class piece here too. Some of our members can only afford to shop at Walmart. And so if we disparage Walmart, if we disparage something that is normal for someone else, we're really creating a culture that's not welcoming to them. Also the liturgy, I pick on joys and concerns a lot, open mic joys and concerns, but also other things like responsive readings or how many hymns we sing. Is there only one way to do it, or is it like fried potatoes where everyone, maybe learned how to fry them a little bit differently, and there's lots of ways to enjoy fried potatoes. And of course, politics. Some of our congregations, most of our congregations have Republicans in them, and not all of our congregations are welcoming to Republicans or political or fiscal conservatives. But, do we really, we do have Unitarians and Universalists who are Republicans and are fiscal conservatives. And how do we create space so we can have conversations across those differences? So, what are some of the challenges as for you leading in systems? What can you bring back for yourself and for your congregation as far as how you function in leadership? And hopefully you're taking this course with a team, and how might you help one another to be better leaders in these sorts of ways?